On a freezing night in Denver, while everyone hurried past an old man shivering in the snow, one young woman stopped. She didn't know his name, didn't know his story, only that he needed help. But what if that one act of kindness was part of a greater plan? What if the stranger she helped was about to change her life forever? This is a story about faith, compassion, and how God can turn even the coldest night into a miracle. Stay until the end. The twist will warm your heart and maybe even restore your faith in humanity. If you believe kindness can change the world, don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a comment about your own small miracle, and share this video to spread the light. Thank you for watching. May God bless you and guide your heart today. The first snow of the season had swept through Denver, blanketing the streets in a quiet, merciless white. The city, known for its crisp mountain air and golden autumns, now crouched under heavy gray skies. Streetlights flickered through the swirling snow, their halos stretching across the slick pavement, where only the brave, or the desperate, remained outside. Cars moved in sluggish lines, their headlights diffused by frost. The storm wasn't yet a blizzard, but it carried that same warning hum, the kind that made people hurry home and lock their doors. Inside a small 24-hour convenience store on the corner of Colfax and Willow, Emma Brooks wiped down the counter for what felt like the 10th time in an hour. She was 22, slender and soft-featured, with chestnut hair tied back in a ponytail and freckles faintly scattered across her pale skin. Her eyes were a sharp gray blue, the kind that seemed to notice everything but rarely gave away what she was thinking. She'd just graduated from the University of Colorado, business degree still in its envelope, and was juggling this late-night job while searching for something better. Her coworkers teased her for being too polite, too soft-spoken, but she had a quiet resilience shaped by years of working through school and surviving on scholarships. It was close to midnight when the door chime jingled faintly, but no one came in. A gust of wind swept through instead, rattling the rack of postcards by the entrance. Emma looked up and frowned. The streets outside were nearly deserted. She walked closer to the glass and saw him. An old man stood just beyond the awning, shivering violently. His coat was far too thin for the weather, an olive wool jacket that looked decades old, with one sleeve hanging loose at the seam. His gray hair was wild and unkempt beneath a battered cap, his face lined deep with age and confusion. The paper in his trembling hand had blurred ink, as though snowflakes had melted and smudged the address he was trying to read. Emma hesitated for a moment, glancing around. Two teenagers were across the street filming something on their phones. Probably him. A couple huddled under a bus shelter nearby pretended not to see. Everyone seemed to be watching, but no one moved. "Sir?" Emma called through the half-open door, her breath forming white clouds in the cold. "Are you all right?" The man blinked at her, disoriented. I can't find it. He looked down at the paper as if it might offer him an answer. "It was right here. I think my son's address." "Come inside," she said gently, stepping out into the snow to guide him. "You'll freeze out here." He resisted weakly at first, muttering something about not wanting to trouble anyone, but Emma looped her arm through his and led him toward the store's small heater in the corner. As the warmth reached him, his shaking slowed a little. "What's your name, sir?" He took a long moment before replying. "Arthur," he said finally, voice hoarse. "Arthur Carter." Emma fetched a blanket from the emergency kit behind the counter and draped it over his shoulders. His hands, though spotted with age, were well kept, nails clean, skin roughened by time, but not neglect. This wasn't a man used to the streets. "You sit tight," she said kindly. "I'll get you some tea." The bell chimed again as the door opened, and a woman entered, brushing snow from her red parka. She was Maya Lopez, a local nurse who stopped by during her late ER shifts for hot cocoa and conversation. Maya was 26, with warm brown skin, deep brown eyes, and a quick, no-nonsense smile. She was shorter than Emma, curvy and confident, the kind of person who seemed to radiate calm in any situation. "Rough night, huh?" Maya said, shaking snow from her boots. Then she noticed the old man on the chair. "Oh my God, is he okay?" "I just found him outside," Emma explained. "He's lost. Says he's looking for his son's house but can't remember the address." Maya's tone shifted immediately to professional concern. "May I?" She knelt beside Arthur and spoke gently. "Mr. Carter, do you know what day it is?" Arthur looked down, frowning hard, as if the question itself had slipped through his grasp. "It's winter," he said finally. "Snow means winter." Maya and Emma exchanged a glance. "Could be early dementia," Maya whispered. "He's definitely hypothermic." Emma nodded, biting her lip. "The problem is, he has no phone, no ID, just this." She handed Maya the soggy paper with the half-faded address. Before Maya could respond, the sound of scratching claws and jingling tags came from the doorway. In trotted Rex, a 3-year-old German shepherd with a thick coat of sable fur and intelligent amber eyes. His handler, Tom Benson, followed, a stocky volunteer rescuer in his late 30s with a scruffy beard and a kind smile. They'd been making rounds, checking alleys for stray animals or people caught in the cold. "Evening, ladies," Tom greeted. "Storm's biting hard tonight. Found anyone needing help?" "Right here," Maya said, motioning toward Arthur. Rex approached curiously, his nose twitching as he sniffed at the old man's coat. Then he sat down abruptly, pawing lightly at Arthur's chest pocket and whining. "What's he found?" Emma asked. Tom leaned down and gently reached into the coat. From the inner pocket, he pulled out a cracked leather wallet, nearly frozen stiff. Inside were a few faded photos, a Metro card, and an emergency contact card labeled, "In case of emergency, Ethan Carter," along with a phone number and address. "That's something," Maya murmured in relief. "Ethan Carter. Wait, that name sounds familiar." Emma frowned. "Carter Dynamics, maybe? The tech company, downtown?" Tom nodded. "Big money. They're based near Union Station. Looks like our friend here has connections." Arthur stirred weakly. "Ethan," he repeated, his voice soft. "My boy." His cloudy eyes brightened briefly with recognition, then dulled again. "He's busy. Always busy." Emma's chest tightened at the helplessness in his tone. She crouched beside him. "We'll get you back to him soon, I promise, but for now, you're safe here." Outside, the snow thickened, blurring the city into a watercolor of white and amber. The distant siren of an ambulance echoed faintly before fading into the storm. Inside the small store, time seemed to slow. The hum of the heater, the drip of melting snow from Rex's fur, the soft clink of mugs as Maya poured tea. Emma sat across from Arthur, keeping her tone light and steady. "Mr. Carter, do you live here in Denver?" "Used to," he said after a pause. "Before my wife passed. She loved the lilacs on Elm Street. I thought I'd go see them again. But they're gone now, aren't they?" Maya swallowed hard. "It's too cold for flowers this time of year," she said softly. Arthur gave a faint smile, the kind that carried both acceptance and confusion. "Yes, too cold for a lot of things." Rex lay down at his feet, resting his head on his paws, as though sensing the melancholy in the air. Emma noticed how naturally the dog had claimed a protective stance between Arthur and the door. Tom straightened, pulling out his radio. "I'll notify dispatch and see if anyone can reach this Ethan Carter, but given the weather, we might not get a response until morning." "That's fine," Emma said. "He can stay here tonight. We've got heat, tea, and company." Tom nodded, tipping his hat before heading back into the snow. The wind howled briefly as the door swung shut behind him, then faded again. Arthur's eyes had grown heavy, exhaustion overtaking him. Emma tucked the blanket higher under his chin and whispered, "Rest. We'll figure this out when the sun comes up." As she stood, Maya watched her with quiet admiration. "You've got a good heart, Emma. Most people would have called the cops and gone back to their phones." Emma shrugged, her voice gentle. "Maybe, but kindness costs less than regret." Maya smiled. "Remind me to quote you on that." Rex gave a soft bark, as if in approval. Outside, the storm intensified, but within the glow of that small Denver store, warmth lingered. A pocket of humanity holding out against the cold. Emma looked out at the swirling snow and thought, not for the first time, that sometimes fate didn't shout. It knocked quietly, shivering, waiting for someone to open the door. The storm had eased a little by the time the wall clock struck 1. The snow outside no longer lashed at the windows but drifted down in thick, heavy flakes, muffling the world in an eerie silence. Inside the small Denver store, the fluorescent lights flickered faintly as the old heater hummed and coughed. Emma Brooks sat at the small break table with her notebook open, writing down observations the way she had learned in her college business management course. Clear, factual, and calm under pressure. Only tonight, she wasn't studying numbers or logistics. She was documenting the symptoms of a frightened old man who had lost his bearings in a city that used to feel like home. Arthur Carter slept lightly on the couch they had set up near the heater. His face, once lined with tension, now softened in uneasy dreams. Every few minutes he muttered a name, sometimes Mary, sometimes Ethan. Emma guessed Mary might be his late wife. His breathing steadied, and the rhythmic rise and fall of the blanket seemed to calm even Rex, the German shepherd lying beside the couch like a sentry. Rex's thick sable coat gleamed in the low light, his ears twitching at every creak and gust outside. The dog had settled in as though he had claimed Arthur as part of his rescue duty. Maya Lopez, the nurse, was on her phone near the counter, trying again to reach the emergency contact written on the card from Arthur's wallet. "Still nothing," she sighed, setting the phone down. "Either the number's old or no one's awake to answer." Emma frowned. "It's listed as Ethan Carter. Maybe it's a business line?" "Could be," Maya replied, rubbing her eyes. "But we can't be sure. If he really is related to that Carter, it explains a lot. Well-kept hands, expensive watch, not homeless for sure. But why would someone like that be wandering alone in this weather?" Before Emma could answer, the bell above the door jingled. The cold rushed in, followed by a tall man in a police uniform brushing snow from his shoulders. Officer Daniels was in his early 40s, with a square jaw shadowed by a day's stubble and lines etched deep around his eyes, the kind that came from years of late shifts and long nights answering calls that rarely ended well. His voice was steady but carried the fatigue of someone who'd seen more cruelty than kindness. "Got a call from dispatch?" he said, nodding at Maya. "Said you've got a senior who might be missing?" "Yes, officer," Emma said quickly. "His name's Arthur Carter. He's been confused. Says he was trying to find his son's house but got lost." Daniels stepped closer, studying Arthur with a practiced gaze. "I can take him to the station. Safer there than a store overnight. We'll run his ID and contact the family." Arthur stirred at the sound of a new voice, eyes blinking open. "Station," he repeated, voice uncertain. "Did I do something wrong?" Emma's heart clenched. "No, sir. The officer's just here to help. But Arthur's confusion deepened. His fingers clutched the blanket. No police, he whispered, shaking his head. Last time, they took me away. Said I was trespassing. His breathing quickened. Daniels softened his tone. Sir, no one's in trouble. We just want to make sure you're warm and safe. Still, Arthur flinched when the officer reached for his arm. Rex lifted his head instantly, letting out a low growl. Not aggressive, just protective. Emma stepped in quickly. It's okay, Rex, easy boy. She placed her hand on the dog's neck until he relaxed again. Turning to Daniels, she said, if it's all right, could he stay here until morning? The heater works, and he seems calmer here. I'll write everything down for the report. Daniels studied her for a moment. You sure you're up for that? The department can handle it. I'm sure, Emma said quietly. He's frightened. Moving him right now will only make it worse. The officer hesitated, then nodded. All right, but you'll need to keep a record. Any changes, anything he says that might help find next of kin. I'm already doing that, she replied, tapping her notebook. Satisfied, Daniels jotted his number on a scrap of paper. Call me if anything changes. I'll check back at sunrise. As he left, the door rattled shut behind him, and the storm swallowed his figure. Emma turned back to Arthur, whose breathing was slowing again. You did great, she said softly. You're safe now. Arthur blinked at her, his eyes clearer for a moment. You remind me of my Mary. She used to say that too. Your wife? Emma asked gently. He nodded. She had kind eyes, like yours. Always told me not to worry so much about Ethan. Your son? Arthur frowned, rubbing his temple as if pulling the name from fog. Ethan. Yes. Works with computers, I think. Busy man? Big office near Tech Park? Emma glanced up sharply. Tech Park? Yes. He smiled faintly, lost in the memory. Tall glass building. He used to show me pictures. Said one day the whole skyline would light up with his name. Maya had returned to the table, her expression curious. That matches Carter Dynamics. Their headquarters are in the Denver Tech Park. Emma grabbed her phone and typed Ethan Carter, Denver Tech Park, into the search bar. The first result was a headline. Carter Dynamics CEO Ethan Carter leads innovation drive in AI systems. Beneath it, a photo of a tall man in his late 30s, clean-cut with sharp blue eyes, dark hair combed neatly back, wearing a charcoal suit and a guarded smile. The resemblance to Arthur was unmistakable. The same jawline, the same determined brow, though the son's gaze was cold where the father's was warm. That's him, Arthur murmured when she showed him the screen. It's my boy. His eyes glistened. He was just a kid building radios in the garage. Now look at him. I thought, maybe he'd want to see me again. Emma's throat tightened. Of course he would, she said softly, though she wasn't sure. Maya stood beside her, arms folded. He's probably not getting those emergency calls. Office is close overnight. We'll reach him in the morning. Emma nodded, but she could sense the deeper ache behind Arthur's confusion, a loneliness that no technology or title could fix. She sat down beside him and began asking gentle questions, the way she'd read about in articles on dementia care. Mr. Carter, do you remember what kind of radios you and Ethan built? Arthur's eyes lit up faintly. Old AM transmitters. We used to pick up baseball games from Chicago. He'd laugh whenever the commentators crackled through static. As he spoke, his hands moved as though holding invisible tools, rewinding time. Emma wrote every detail in her notebook. These fragments, she knew, could help reconnect him later. Outside, another siren wailed, distant yet sharp. Arthur jolted upright, panic returning to his eyes. "Fire! It's a fire!" "No, no," Emma said quickly, placing a calming hand on his shoulder. "That's just a passing ambulance. You're safe. Listen to my voice." Rex whined and pressed his nose against Arthur's knee, grounding him. Emma took a deep breath and spoke softly, guiding him back with questions about the sound of rain, the smell of coffee, the weight of his old toolbox. Soft orientation, the term she recalled from one of Maya's explanations. Gradually, Arthur's breathing eased again. "You're good at this," Maya whispered. "I just keep thinking," Emma murmured. "If that were my dad, I'd want someone to be patient too." By 3 a.m., the snow had stopped completely. The city slept under its frozen blanket. Maya dozed in a chair. Rex lay curled beside Arthur's couch, and Emma, still writing in her notebook, looked once more at the glowing image of Ethan Carter on her phone screen. The son who built empires while his father wandered in the cold. She sighed and whispered, "Tomorrow, we'll get you home, Mr. Carter." Outside, dawn was still far away, but the snow reflected enough light to make the streets shimmer. It felt, for the first time that night, like the storm had passed through not to destroy, but to reveal. By the time dawn began to smear pale light across the snow-capped streets of Denver, the storm had calmed into a faint mist of frost. Inside the small convenience store, the heater hummed steadily, its warmth keeping the room wrapped in a fragile peace. Emma Brooks was fighting sleep, scribbling final notes in her journal about Arthur's condition. Short-term memory lapses, mild disorientation, recurrent mentions of his son Ethan and his late wife Mary. Across from her, Arthur Carter dozed lightly, his face turned toward the faint glow of morning through the frosted windows. The world outside looked like a watercolor of white and blue. Around 6 a.m., Maya Lopez's phone vibrated on the counter. The nurse startled awake, blinking at the screen. "Unknown number," she murmured, answering quickly. "Hello?" Her eyes widened as she listened. "Yes, this is the nurse who assisted. He's safe. He's been with us all night. Yes, I can confirm. I'll put you on speaker." Emma straightened, brushing her hair back from her tired eyes. A cool, efficient female voice came through the line. "This is Claire Addison, executive assistant to Mr. Ethan Carter of Carter Dynamics. We received your message about Mr. Arthur Carter's whereabouts. Mr. Carter is en route personally to retrieve his father. Please ensure he remains safe until arrival." Claire's voice carried a polished calm, each syllable sharp, practiced, and devoid of emotion. One could almost picture her, the kind of woman who lived inside spreadsheets and calendar alerts, whose life was divided into 15-minute slots. "Mr. Carter will be there within the hour," she added before hanging up. Emma exhaled slowly. "So he's really coming." Maya rubbed her arms, glancing toward the window. A billionaire driving through half-frozen streets before sunrise for his father. That's unexpected. Emma offered a tired smile. Maybe family still matters, no matter how rich you are. But her words carried a trace of doubt. At 7:05 a.m., the sound of an engine broke the morning stillness. Through the fogged window, Emma saw a sleek black SUV pull up to the curb, its headlights cutting through the pale haze. The door opened, and a tall man stepped out into the brittle air. Ethan Carter looked every bit the figure from the newspaper photo. Mid-30s, broad-shouldered, dressed in a charcoal overcoat over a navy suit. His features were sharp, high cheekbones, clean-shaven jaw, eyes an icy blue that reflected none of the sunrise. The kind of face sculpted for business magazines. Handsome, but distant. Even his posture, straight and precise, spoke of control. Yet up close there were subtle signs of exhaustion. Dark circles beneath his eyes, tension etched around his mouth. The bell above the door rang as he entered, bringing with him a faint scent of cold air and expensive cologne. Emma looked up from behind the counter, nerves fluttering. Ethan's gaze swept the small store, noting the worn floors, the half-empty shelves, the old heater in the corner, and finally, the sleeping figure of his father. "Mr. Carter?" Emma said softly. He turned to her, voice low and clipped. "You're the one who called?" "Yes. I'm Emma Brooks. He came in last night. He was lost, freezing. We thought it best to keep him here until help arrived." Ethan nodded once. "Thank you. My assistant should have handled this. I appreciate your concern." His tone was polite but formal, his words sounding more like a business transaction than gratitude. Arthur stirred at the sound of his son's voice. "Ethan?" His eyes opened, confused but brightening for a moment. "Is that you?" Ethan's expression softened, though only slightly. He crossed to his father and crouched beside him. "Yes, Dad. I'm here." Arthur smiled faintly, reaching out a trembling hand. "You look tired. Still working too hard?" Ethan hesitated before taking his father's hand. "Old habits," he said quietly. Maya watched the reunion from a distance, her arms crossed protectively. Emma, meanwhile, approached slowly, placing a cup of tea on the counter. "He hasn't eaten much," she said. "Soup helped earlier. He should see a doctor soon. He got confused a few times. Could be early dementia." Ethan straightened, his expression tightening as though she'd crossed a line. "I'll make sure he gets the best care possible," he said, tone clipped. Then, reaching into his coat pocket, he produced a sleek black wallet and withdrew a few crisp $100 bills. "For your time and the trouble." Emma froze. "That's not necessary." "I insist," Ethan said, placing the money on the counter. "You've done more than most would." Emma met his gaze squarely. "I didn't help him for money. I'd rather you keep it." Ethan's brows furrowed slightly, a hint of surprise flickering behind his practiced composure. "Then what would you prefer?" "A fair chance," she said quietly. "I've been applying to Carter Dynamics for months. Marketing division, entry level. I'm not asking for favors, just don't open a back door. Let me earn it honestly." That caught him off guard. "You're turning down cash for a chance at an interview?" Emma nodded. "If it's worth having, it should be worth earning." For a brief moment, Ethan studied her in silence, something unreadable flickering in his eyes. Before he could respond, a sharp clatter from the front made them all turn. The door was swinging open. The wind had pushed it wide. Arthur was gone. "Dad," Ethan called, voice rising. Emma was already at the door, eyes scanning the snow-blanketed street. He couldn't have gone far. Maya grabbed her coat. "I'll check the side alley." Rex, who had been napping under the table, sprang to his feet at the urgency in their voices. His ears pricked forward, tail stiff, nose twitching. "Go, boy," Emma said quickly, pointing toward the open street. "Find him." The German shepherd bounded out into the cold, his powerful stride cutting through the snow. Ethan followed with Emma close behind, their breath visible in the sharp morning air. They found Arthur minutes later by the canal bridge 2 blocks away, standing dangerously close to the icy railing. The water below was half frozen, reflecting the pale gold of sunrise. He looked lost again, muttering softly, "Mary. Mary, wait." "Dad!" Ethan shouted, rushing forward. Arthur turned, startled, slipping slightly on the icy ground. Emma darted forward instinctively, reaching him first and catching his arm. "It's okay, Arthur," she said gently. "You're safe. You're not alone." Her voice was calm but firm, steady as the snow beneath their feet. She guided him back from the edge, keeping her tone low and rhythmic. soft orientation again, grounding him with touch and memory. Rex stood nearby, tail wagging once, then still, guarding. Ethan reached them, his breath uneven, his eyes flicking from Emma to his father. "I should have been here sooner," he muttered. Emma shook her head. "He just needs reassurance. The world feels confusing to him right now. You did come. That's what matters." Arthur looked between them, recognition flickering again. "My son," he whispered, smiling faintly. "And the nice girl from the store." Ethan exhaled, some of the tension draining from his posture. "Let's get you home, Dad." As they helped Arthur back toward the SUV, the rising sun painted the snow in shades of rose and amber. Emma stayed beside them until the door closed, and the heater inside roared to life. Ethan turned to her before getting in. "You're different," he said quietly. "Most people would have taken the money and walked away." Emma gave a small smile. "Maybe I'm just old-fashioned." He studied her for a moment longer, then nodded. "Claire will contact you. About that interview." Before she could reply, he stepped into the SUV, and the car pulled away into the golden morning. Emma watched until it disappeared around the corner. Rex nudged her hand gently, snow dusting his fur. She smiled down at him. "We did good, boy." The sun was climbing now, glinting off the snow like a promise. Somewhere in the city, a door had opened. Not through luck, but through integrity. The following morning broke clear and cold over Denver. The storm had passed, leaving behind streets glazed with ice that caught the light like glass. The city moved carefully, as if afraid to disturb the fragile calm that came after the snow. Inside the gleaming headquarters of Carter Dynamics, everything was steel, glass, and quiet precision. A world apart from the small convenience store where Emma Brooks had spent her night helping a lost old man. She stood now in the lobby, hands wrapped tightly around the strap of her modest leather bag, her breath faintly visible in the chill air that still clung to her coat. The lobby felt intimidating. Tall glass panels reflected her anxious face from every angle, and above her, a silver plaque read, "Innovation with Integrity." Emma wondered, not without irony, how much of that motto still lived in practice. At the reception desk stood Harper Lynn, a young woman with jet-black hair cut in a perfect bob and sharp eyeliner framing her almond-shaped eyes. Harper wore a tailored gray blazer and had the posture of someone perpetually caught between efficiency and exhaustion. "Name?" she asked, glancing up from her tablet. "Emma Brooks," Emma replied softly. "For the open interview, marketing division." Harper's fingers flicked quickly across the screen. "Got it. Conference room B, second floor. You're early, good sign. You'll be joining group 3. Her tone softened a fraction as she slid over a visitor badge. "Good luck. They can be tough." Emma smiled faintly. "Thanks. I can handle tough." As she walked toward the elevator, the mirrored walls reflected fragments of her determination. Chin lifted, though her heart raced. She had barely slept, replaying the previous morning in her head. Ethan Carter's unreadable expression, his calm words before leaving, and his quiet promise that Claire would reach out. He hadn't lied. Claire Addison had sent her the official link that night. No favors, just a notice of an open interview. It was fair, exactly as Emma wanted. On the second floor, rows of young professionals milled around nervously, clutching portfolios and resumes. Some wore bright confidence like armor. Others shifted awkwardly in their suits. The smell of fresh coffee and nervous energy filled the air. A large banner on the wall read, Community Initiative Challenge, Winter Safety 2030. A tall man entered the room, commanding attention immediately. Marcus Doyle, the head of recruitment, was in his early 50s, broad-shouldered, with salt and pepper hair, and a voice deep enough to quiet the room. His expression was stern but not unkind, the kind of man who valued discipline and ideas equally. Years ago, he'd served as a logistics officer during flood relief operations in Louisiana, and that experience still shaped his approach to teamwork. No excuses, no shortcuts. "Good morning," Marcus said. "You're here for one reason, to show us how you think, not who you know. Each group will receive a community crisis scenario. You'll have 40 minutes to develop a practical plan, then present it to the panel. Remember, creativity means nothing without feasibility." Emma's group gathered around a long table. 4 other candidates introduced themselves. Liam Torres, a charming marketing graduate with a slick haircut and too much cologne. Charlotte Green, a petite woman with sharp green eyes and an MBA from Chicago. Noah Patel, a quiet data analyst who looked perpetually worried. And Sabrina Wills, a confident woman in her 30s with corporate experience and an air of authority. Their task: design a scalable community response plan for a winter emergency affecting multiple Denver neighborhoods. Immediately, Liam leaned forward. "We should pitch something flashy. An app, maybe. Digital volunteer tracking, smart notifications. Sounds innovative, right?" Charlotte nodded eagerly. "Yes, something that sounds tech-driven. Carter Dynamics loves innovation." Emma hesitated. "That's a great angle, but apps don't help if people can't reach them. What about the vulnerable, seniors, people without smartphones, the homeless?" Sabrina smiled politely, the kind of smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "True, but let's be realistic. The panel wants scalability, not charity. If we anchor on emotional cases, we'll sound naive." Emma looked at the whiteboard, then back at them. "What if we build a bridge between technology and humanity? Something affordable, simple, but networked. I used to work at a 24-hour store. During storms, people come in scared, lost, hungry. What if those stores became warm points, places registered with the city as temporary heat shelters? They could link to clinics, police dispatch, and volunteer rescue teams, including dog units like Rex, the German Shepherd from last night's rescue network. Each location could share verified data through an emergency hotline." Noah looked up from his notes. "That's actually measurable. You could integrate it with GPS-based maps. Volunteers mark active warm points. Police and nurses cross-verify through call logs. Costs stay minimal." Marcus Doyle, who had been walking quietly among the groups, stopped behind them, listening without interrupting. Liam frowned. "Sounds low-tech. Not exactly Carter-level innovation." Emma shook her head. "Sometimes the smartest system is the one people actually use. Reliability is innovation when it saves lives." Charlotte tilted her head, reconsidering. "We could add a wearable element, like identity bracelets for dementia patients or anyone rescued. QR codes linked to an ICE contact database. That's still scalable." Sabrina leaned back. "Fine, but it has to sound polished in presentation." When their time ran out, Marcus called the groups forward. One by one, teams presented. Elaborate tech concepts filled with jargon. AI-driven snowplow routing, augmented reality emergency drills, blockchain resource management. The panel nodded politely, but remained expressionless. Then came Emma's group. Liam and Charlotte spoke first, introducing the premise. Emma handled the core structure. her voice steady but warm. She described the Warm Point network, the integration between local stores, clinics, and police, and the use of simple bracelets for identification. Our goal, she concluded, isn't to replace people with systems. It's to help people help each other faster. When she finished, the room was quiet for a long moment. Then Marcus nodded slowly. Cost-effective, scalable, human-centered. He glanced at the other panelists, then back at her. Nicely done. The presentations ended by noon. The candidates filed out to the lobby to wait. Emma sat quietly near the window, sipping from a paper cup. Through the glass, she could see the mountains in the distance, their snowy peaks catching sunlight. She felt neither triumphant nor defeated, just at peace. 10 minutes later, Marcus emerged with the list of top scores. He didn't read names aloud, but approached Emma directly. Brooks, right? She stood. Yes, sir. He offered a small smile, rare but genuine. Good instincts. You think like someone who's seen the problem, not just studied it. Thank you, she said. As Marcus walked away, Ethan Carter appeared at the far end of the hall, talking quietly with Claire Addison. His expression was composed as ever, but when his eyes met Emma's, he gave the faintest nod of acknowledgement. Claire, ever efficient, handed him a file and murmured something about the candidate list. Ethan didn't respond. His gaze lingered just a second longer before he turned back to his conversation. Emma exhaled slowly. She didn't know yet whether she'd passed, but she knew she hadn't needed anyone's back door to stand here. Whatever came next, she'd earned it. Outside, the winter sun shone brighter, melting thin ribbons of ice on the glass facade of Carter Dynamics. A small reflection of thaw beginning to form in more than just the weather. By late afternoon, the Denver skyline shimmered beneath a pale sun. The snow that had blanketed the streets for days now melted into silver rivulets, gliding along curbs and glistening beneath the light of office windows. It was the first stillness the city had known since the storm, a moment when the air itself seemed to sigh in relief. Inside Carter Dynamics, the tension of the morning's open interviews had shifted into quiet anticipation. Candidates gathered in the main atrium, a vast, glass-walled space filled with soft winter light and the muted hum of conversation. Emma Brooks stood near the back, her worn but carefully pressed blazer buttoned neatly, her hands clasped before her. She tried to appear calm, but her heart beat faster with every passing minute. Around her, other applicants whispered guesses about who had made it through. The air smelled faintly of coffee and pine-scented polish. Near the stage stood a few senior executives, including Marcus Doyle, the recruitment director, his posture as steady as ever. Beside him, the ever-composed Claire Addison held a clipboard, scanning through final documents with brisk efficiency. The only sound that broke the hush was the rhythmic tapping of her pen. Then, as if the atmosphere itself shifted, Ethan Carter appeared from the glass elevator. His charcoal coat was unbuttoned, his white shirt crisp against the dark fabric, and the cold light made his blue eyes sharper, but not as distant as before. The crowd straightened instinctively, their conversations dissolving into silence. "Good afternoon," Ethan began, his voice calm but carrying authority that needed no microphone. "First, I want to thank all of you for being here today, for bringing ideas, energy, and purpose to what we do." He paused, scanning the faces before him. Innovation doesn't begin with technology. It begins with perspective. Today's challenge reminded us that the most effective solutions are often born from empathy and practicality. His eyes landed briefly on Emma. The look wasn't lingering or theatrical, just a subtle acknowledgement, but enough to make her chest tighten. He continued, The evaluation committee has finalized the results for the management trainee program. All candidates were judged anonymously, solely on performance. He turned slightly to Marcus, who stepped forward with a small envelope. Marcus's deep voice filled the atrium. The top candidate, scoring highest in creativity, feasibility, and leadership under collaboration, Miss Emma Brooks. A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. Emma froze for a heartbeat, unsure if she had heard correctly. Marcus smiled, motioning her forward. Miss Brooks, congratulations. She stepped up slowly, her shoes clicking softly against the polished floor. When Marcus shook her hand, his grip was firm and proud. You've earned this the right way, he said quietly, and there was genuine respect in his tone. Ethan spoke again, his gaze steady on her. Miss Brooks represents what this company stands for: competence, compassion, and courage. She didn't just offer a plan, she offered perspective. Emma swallowed hard, her throat tight. Thank you, she managed, her voice trembling slightly. I just wanted to solve a problem people actually face. Ethan's lips curved faintly. That's usually the best place to start. As polite applause filled the room, Emma's pulse steadied. For the first time in months, the uncertainty that had followed her since graduation began to lift. After the event, as the crowd dispersed, she stepped outside into the fading daylight. The snow underfoot crackled softly as she walked down the marble steps, her breath rising in thin white clouds. She had just started to pull her coat tighter when a familiar bark made her turn. Rex, the German shepherd, bounded toward her, his thick fur dusted with snow. His handler wasn't with him this time. Just Arthur Carter, bundled in a heavy navy coat and knit scarf. His silver hair was combed neatly, his cheeks flushed from the cold. Though his steps were slow, his eyes were clearer than the night she'd first met him. Mr. Carter, Emma exclaimed, her face lighting up. What are you doing here? It's freezing. Arthur chuckled softly. Your friend Ethan wouldn't take no for an answer. Said there was someone I should see. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of wool, a small, unfinished gray scarf, its edges uneven but beautifully textured. I was working on this before the snow started, he said. Therapy for my memory, they tell me. I wanted you to have it. Emma hesitated, touched. You made this? Half of it, he said with a sheepish grin. My hands aren't what they used to be, but Rex made sure I didn't quit. Rex wagged his tail proudly, pressing his head against Emma's knee. She knelt, rubbing his thick fur. You've got good company, she said softly. Arthur's voice lowered. You brought me home that night, Emma, when I was lost, not just in the city, but in my own mind. You didn't know who I was, but you helped anyway. You brought me back to my boy. Emma's throat tightened. I just did what anyone should. Arthur shook his head gently. No, not anyone. These days, kindness feels rarer than sunlight in winter. Behind them, footsteps approached. Ethan had stepped outside, his breath visible in the golden air. His coat collar was turned up, and for the first time, there was no trace of the formal businessman. Only a sun, and perhaps a man beginning to understand warmth again. I told you she wouldn't take the scarf if she thought it was payment, Ethan said with quiet amusement. Arthur chuckled. Then good thing it's a gift. He patted Emma's hand. Keep it. Maybe finish it someday. She nodded, eyes glistening. I will. Rex barked once, as if approving the exchange. Ethan glanced at the dog. He's been restless all morning, he said. I think he wanted one more walk. Or one more thank you, Arthur added. The three of them began walking down the snow-lined street together. Arthur steadying himself with Ethan's arm, Emma beside them, Rex trotting happily ahead. The street lamps flickered on, casting golden halos over the melting snow. The city, for once, seemed softer. As they passed a storefront window, Emma caught their reflection. The aging father who'd found his way home, the man who'd learned humility through love, and the young woman who'd proven that compassion was strength. She smiled faintly. Ethan noticed. "You're quiet," he said. "Just thinking," she replied. "How strange it is that a storm can bring people together." He looked at her for a long moment. "Storms do that," he said. "They remind us who we are when everything else stops working." At the corner, Rex paused, his breath steaming in the cold, and looked back at them expectantly. Arthur laughed. "Even he knows when it's time to go home." Ethan nodded, his gaze lingering on Emma for a moment longer. "Welcome to Carter Dynamics, Miss Brooks. Or should I say, welcome home." As they walked beneath the warm glow of the streetlights, the scarf fluttered lightly in Emma's hands. It wasn't finished, but it didn't need to be. Some things, she thought, were most beautiful when left open, like new beginnings or the end of a long, cold winter. Sometimes, miracles don't come with thunder or angels in the sky. They come quietly, in a small act of kindness, in a cup of warm tea given to a stranger, or in a young woman who stops to help an old man no one else would. That night in the snow, Emma didn't just help Arthur find his way home. She helped remind the world that compassion itself is a gift from God. When we open our hearts, God works through us, not with lightning or loud voices, but through the gentle touch of mercy and love. Just like Emma, each of us has the power to be someone's miracle today. A smile, a helping hand, a moment of patience. Those are the quiet ways heaven still moves among us. So if this story touched your heart, take a moment to share it. Spread this light to others who might need to believe that kindness still exists. Leave a comment below to tell us about a time when you witnessed a small miracle in your life. And if you believe in the beauty of simple goodness, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Together, we'll keep telling stories that remind the world that God's love still walks among us, one good deed at a time. May the Lord bless you and your loved ones, guide you through every storm, and warm your heart the way Emma's kindness warmed Arthur's that snowy night. God bless you, and may His light shine upon all who choose compassion.